The Carolina Hurricanes are on a lengthy road trip early in the season. Can they get in gear on this lengthy road trip? Well, Jared Ellis of Locked On Carolina Hurricanes is here to talk about that and more next on the Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And you can find us now on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On NHL. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Just download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. It is great to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Carolina Hurricanes, Jared Ellis. And Jared, long road trip after one home game to start this season. What kind of a challenge does having this many road games, West Coast this early in the season pose to this team?
Yeah, I think, when it comes to the early season road trips, they do this because of the North Carolina State Fair, because the state fairgrounds are right next to PNC Arena and traffic is an absolute nightmare with it. So that's why they do that every year to start out the season. And I think, the big challenges with that is one, knocking off the early season rust, that every team has. I mean, that's going to happen regardless of the sport. Just knocking that stuff off. And then, the new guys coming in, of them really getting acclimated to the Hurricanes system and their way of doing things. I think that's really just the big challenges there. When we go into these, you're kind of looking at 50% or better once all this is said and done. They obviously won the first game down in LA. The game against Anaheim is still going on right now as of recording, and that one's not looking so great. So it's give and take. It's you got to remember that it's still early on in the season. Folks are still knocking that rust off, and then new guys getting acclimated. I try not to look too far into this. I mean, they're literally playing their third game of the season right now, so trying not to take it too much. But there's definitely through these first three games, definitely seeing some stuff that needs to be worked on for sure.
Well, one thing that surprises me is how many goals against the Hurricanes have given up. I mean, they are usually an excellent defensive team. What have you seen from this team? And is it just getting the rust out, as you said, or are there reasons for concern?
So I do think the rust is definitely part of it. But you look, and then of course you have new guys as well, factoring all that in. But one thing that I am just seeing so much over the course of these first three games is the defensive liability that Tony DeAngelo is. A lot of these goals, you can look to him, being in the wrong spot, and just mistakes he's making defensively, and he's just being a liability. He's sticking out like a sore thumb. And I really think he's the guy that should be the seventh defenseman sitting up in the press box, not Jalen Chatfield like he has the past two games against LA and Anaheim. He was just much more sound defensively. I know tonight, as of recording, in the game against Anaheim, the pairing of Orlov and DeAngelo has been comical with the mistakes that they've been making. So again, it is early season. So I'm trying not to get too frustrated with that. But yeah, DeAngelo, he is just a liability defensively with mistakes he's making. And, it's one thing right now, you're 3 games into the season, but, come, down the stretch at the end of the regular season into the playoffs, these are not mistakes we can really be affording to have. Because one thing I was mentioning after the home opener was, the mistakes, he makes, and he's not going to be paired with Jacob Slavin this year. That's not going to happen. Jacob Slavin is going to be with Brent Burns. That's what's going to happen. And he's not going to have Jacob Slavin to hide those mistakes like he did in his first stint with the Hurricanes. So his defensive game really has to improve. He's going to be on the third pair this year, plain and simple. He's not going to be a top two pairing defenseman. And, we'll see, how things shake out with his defensive partner, whether it ends up being Brady Shea or Dmitry Orlov or Jalen Chatfield. We'll just have to wait and see, because I originally thought it would be Brady Shea bumping down to that third pairing, and it being Orlov and Pesci. But through those first two games, that pairing is just showing why they're so good together. They've been playing together for years now. They know each other, and you kind of don't want to split that up. But you are paying Dmitry Orlov, I believe, $7.5 million a season. So do you want that on your third pairing? I don't know. It is still early, so we'll just have to wait and see. But I do think D'Angelo, he's got to be the extra guy this year, not Jalen Chatfield, because of just how much of a liability he is.
I know that so far through 3 games, the Hurricanes are putting a lot of pucks into the net, but
Yeah.
obviously when the season started, offense was more of a concern consistency-wise than defense. What's your outlook on this team's offense and power play, and can they keep up what they've been doing so far through 3 games?
So far through 3 games, it has looked really good. Obviously, my big thing, with the Aussie is like they should have went out and got a pure goal scorer, but we are seeing a little bit of a change with that. Teuvo Teravainen, he's a guy that has really stood out over these first 3 games. I believe as of recording, he's got 4 goals already on the season and 0 assists. And he's always been a pass first guy. And in the home opener, he had this beautiful pass from Natchez. There was another guy involved with it. I don't remember who it was right now. But in years past, you would have seen him pass it back to Natchez. But no, he took the shot. And I think that's going to be big. We'll see how things go through the season. It is still very, very early. So I'm don't want to say, hey, we're good to go, or hey, this is a sinking ship. So we're gonna have to wait and see how things go with the offense and power play. But through 3 games, it has looked good, and we'll just have to wait and see. In the what was it? The home opener, or no, it was the game against LA where they had like 3 shorthanded goals. That was fantastic, and I hope they can keep that up. Sebastian Aho in that game, he took the all-time franchise record of shorthanded goals, so that's fantastic. And he's still got a super long career ahead of him, so he's going to continue to add to that total, which is nice. But I'm liking what I'm seeing so far, but we're definitely gonna have to wait and see, come trade deadline, do they make a move for someone, and just do they decide to do there?
So we are, as you mentioned, only 3 games into the season. What are the keys for success this year for the Hurricanes?
So I think the keys for success this year are, one, of course, just staying healthy. That's going to go with every team, in the NHL and every sport, just staying healthy, of course. And then guys that they're, looking to, they're franchise guys. Those guys continue to take steps forward. Like I mentioned, Sebastian Aho, he took the franchise record for shorthanded goals. Teuvo Teravainen, he's actually shooting for once, which is great. And Seth Jarvis, I believe it was NHL Network. I forget who it was, but they had him pegged as a breakout candidate for the year. Martin Natchez, him, if he can replicate the absolutely phenomenal season he had last year, and then of course goaltending, if that stuff can continue to be good, and those guys stay healthy. Obviously, they have the 3 goalies: Anderson, Ronta, and Kochetkov. Kochetkov playing for Tampa Bay's AHL affiliate because the Hurricanes don't have their own. Obviously, he will not play for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Please stop freaking out about that. But yeah, if they can stay healthy, and then again, just the guys that they need to be productive, if those guys are productive, and then they continue to have that depth scoring, that they tend to always have. But yeah, I think if they can do that, they'll be good. As the season goes on, we'll kind of know a little bit more of what they may need to do heading into trade deadline, whether it's getting a goal scorer, which that'll probably be it. But, you know, we'll just kind of see as the season goes along.
All right, Jared, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find the podcast wherever you're listening to this one, whether it be Spotify, Apple, SiriusXM, Stitcher, whatever. Locked On Hurricanes is going to be on there. And of course, over on YouTube, we're closing in on 700 subscribers over there. So drop a subscribe over there. And then on social media at LO_Hurricanes and myself at Jared Ellis _96.
Jared, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Always, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof rack, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit available only to U.S. customers.